Picture this: Lagos, Nigeria. The year is 2019. Behind the towering glass walls of the most expensive penthouse in all of West Africa, a man sits alone in complete darkness. This isn't just any man. This is Chief Adigun Leo Adeyemi, a name that once made politicians bow and made Forbes magazine call him Africa's Golden Lion. But tonight, something is different. Tonight, his hands are shaking as he stares at a single object on his mahogany desk. A gold feather, stained with blood that refuses to dry, no matter how many times he tries to wipe it clean. You see, for 15 years, this man had owned everything: skyscrapers that pierced the clouds, oil wells that pumped liquid gold, a private island where presidents came to beg for favors. The newspapers called him Lagos's greatest philanthropist. Children in orphanages sang his name. But what those children didn't know, what nobody knew, was the price he had paid for all of it. Because behind those marble gates and golden statues, Chief Adigun had been keeping a secret so dark, so unthinkable, that when it finally came to light, it would shake an entire nation to its core. The first clue was that blood-stained feather left on a doorstep that wasn't supposed to exist. By the time you understand what that feather means, you'll know exactly how a man can trade his humanity for unimaginable wealth, and what happens when that debt finally comes due. This is the story of how Lagos's most beloved philanthropist became its most feared predator, and I promise you, by the end of the story, you'll never look at wealth and power the same way again. Let me take you back to where it all began. Lagos Lagoon, 1995. 9-year-old Adigun sits in a weathered canoe with his grandmother, learning to fish as the sun melts into the water like liquid copper. His grandmother, Mama Ejida, is the kind of woman whose words carry the weight of generations. "Adigun, my child," she says, her voice like dried leaves rustling in harmattan wind. "Remember what our ancestors taught us. The spirits of the water, the earth, the sky, they see everything, and they remember everything. He who shakes hands with spirits must wash with fire." Young Adigun doesn't understand. Not yet. All he knows is that his stomach growls every night, that his clothes have holes his grandmother can't afford to fix, and that across the lagoon, mansions rise like golden mountains he can never climb. But fate has plans for this boy. Fast forward 8 years. Adigun, now 17, stands in the courtyard of an elite boarding school in England. Around him, boys his age laugh and point, their expensive watches glinting in the afternoon sun. They call him the African charity case. They hide his books. They pour soup over his one good uniform. But here's what those boys don't see. Behind Adigun's humiliated tears, something is awakening. Something cold and calculating and absolutely ruthless. As he watches them drive away in cars worth more than his entire village, he makes a promise to himself that will change everything. "One day," he whispers, "I will own you all." The year 2003. Adigun returns to Lagos, and suddenly, impossibly, everything he touches turns to gold. His company, Adeyemi Holdings, wins every oil contract it bids for. His real estate deals multiply in value overnight. Within 2 years, he's the youngest billionaire in Nigeria's history. Politicians who once ignored him now line up outside his office. The same newspapers that never knew his name put him on their front pages. Charity galas compete for his attendance. He builds hospitals, schools, orphanages. The city loves him. The country loves him. But success, this impossible, this sudden, it has to come from somewhere. And it does. Picture this. December 2003, the annual Lagos Business Excellence Gala. Adigun, now worth over $2 billion, stands on stage, accepting yet another humanitarian award. The applause thunders through the ballroom like a hurricane. Presidents shake his hand. Celebrities pose for photos. But in the crowd, one figure doesn't clap. A tall man, dressed entirely in deep red cloth, his face hidden in shadows. As Adigun steps off the stage, this stranger slips something into his hand, something that feels ancient, something that seems to whisper. Adigun looks down. It's a leather-bound book, so old it might crumble at his touch. On the cover, symbols that seem to move in the lamplight, and tucked between its pages, a single golden feather that gleams like liquid fire. The stranger leans close. His breath smells like burning sage and old graves. "You want more," the stranger whispers. "I can give you everything, but everything has a price." That night, alone in his penthouse, Adigun opens the book. The pages are filled with words in languages he's never seen, but somehow, impossibly, he understands everyone. What happens next takes place in the Badagry forest, 40 kilometers from Lagos. If you've never been there, imagine trees so old they remember when the first slaves were taken from these shores. Imagine darkness so complete it swallows sound itself. It's midnight. Adigun follows the red-clothed stranger down paths that seem to shift and change with each step. The air grows thick, almost solid. Drums echo from nowhere and everywhere. And then, in a clearing that shouldn't exist, he sees it. A shrine carved from black stone, symbols that hurt to look at directly. And around it, figures in masks that seem to be made from human faces. But the most terrifying thing isn't what he sees, it's what he feels, the absolute certainty that he is no longer entirely human. The ceremony. I won't describe it in detail because some things are too dark for words. But I will tell you this. When the spirits speak, their voices sound like dying children, and when they make their offer, it's simple. A life for a life, multiplied sevenfold. For every life you give us, we will give you 7 years of power beyond imagining. Adigun thinks of the boys who humiliated him. He thinks of the poverty that clawed at his childhood. He thinks of the power to never be powerless again. He accepts. What follows is the most terrifying success story you've ever heard. Every business deal Adigun touches doesn't just succeed, it explodes. Oil fields that were supposed to be dry produce millions of barrels. Real estate investments multiply by 1,000%. Within a year, he's worth $20 billion. Forbes puts him on their cover with the headline, "The African Miracle." Time magazine calls him the man who rebuilt Lagos. Children are named after him. Universities offer him honorary doctorates. But if you had looked closely, really closely, you might have noticed something else. Construction workers start going missing around his building sites. Always the same pattern. They show up for work. Their friends see them enter the site, but they never come home. Their families file reports. Police investigate. But somehow, the paperwork always gets lost. The investigations always hit dead ends. And if you had examined those missing workers' belongings, you would have found something chilling. Each one carried a small golden feather trinket, a gift from the Adeyemi Foundation, given to workers as a blessing for protection. The same foundation that was building hope across Lagos was also building something else, something that required a very different kind of foundation. Now let me introduce you to Detective Kemi Okonkwo, 34 years old, Lagos State Criminal Investigation Department. She's the kind of cop who doesn't believe in coincidences, and she's been watching the pattern of disappearances for months. But for Kemi, this isn't just professional, it's personal. 3 months ago, her cousin Tunde, a construction worker, father of 2, the kind of man who sent half his salary home to support his elderly parents, took a job with Adeyemi Holdings. He was excited. The pay was incredible. The benefits were unheard of. Tunde went to work on a Tuesday morning, texting Kemi about how grateful he was for the opportunity. He never came home. Kemi has been investigating his disappearance ever since, following a trail that leads deeper and deeper into Lagos's shadows. And now, staring at the evidence board in her cramped office, she's starting to see a pattern that terrifies her. 17 missing workers, all men between 25 and 35, all disappeared from Adeyemi construction sites, all carrying those golden feather trinkets, and all disappearing on dates that correspond exactly with Adigun's biggest business victories. Late one night, as Kemi sits surrounded by case files and cold coffee, her phone buzzes. Unknown number. The message makes her blood freeze. Gold bleeds at dawn. Pier 7. Come alone if you want the truth. Pier 7, 5 a.m. Lagos Harbour shrouded in mist that moves like living smoke. Kemi parks her beat-up Toyota between shipping containers, her service weapon heavy against her hip. She's been a cop for 12 years, but she's never felt fear like this. Not fear of danger, but fear of what she might discover. She follows a trail of golden feathers, real ones this time, still wet with something that might be blood, deeper into the maze of warehouses and abandoned docks. The air smells wrong, like copper and incense and something else. Something that reminds her of the mortuary where she identified her first murder victim. And then she sees it. Hidden beneath Pier 7, accessible only at low tide, is a chamber carved directly into the concrete pilings. Ancient symbols cover every surface. Candles burn with flames that cast no shadows. And in the center, an altar made from what looks like black glass. But it's what's on the altar that makes Kemi's hands shake as she takes photographs with her phone. 17 golden feathers, each one stained with a different type of blood, and beneath them, personal items that make her heart stop. Tunde's wedding ring, another man's work boots, a father's photograph of his children. Footsteps echo behind her, heavy, deliberate. Kemi spins around to see a man emerging from the shadows, tall, scarred, moving with the deadly grace of a predator. This is Mamba, Adigun's personal enforcer, the man who makes problems disappear. "You should not have come here," Mamba says, his voice like gravel. In his hand, a machete gleams in the candlelight. Kemi runs. What follows is a chase through the industrial maze of Lagos Harbour that will haunt your dreams. Kemi, smaller and faster, uses every hiding spot and shortcut she knows. Mamba, methodical and relentless, follows like death itself. But Kemi is smart. As she runs, she's tearing pages from something she grabbed from the altar, a leather-bound book that feels warm to the touch. She leaves a trail of evidence, photographs, anything that might survive if she doesn't. She escapes, barely. And when she finally reaches safety, gasping and bleeding from a dozen cuts, she looks at what she's taken from the altar. It's a page from the ancient grimoire, and though she can't read the symbols, the drawings are clear enough. 17 human figures, 17 golden feathers, and dates that match exactly with Adigun's business triumphs. But here's what makes her blood freeze. There's an 18th space on the page, blank, waiting. Meanwhile, across the city in a penthouse that touches the clouds, Chief Adigun Adeyemi sits with his 19-year-old daughter, Zara. She's everything good he has left in the world. Brilliant, compassionate, studying medicine because she wants to heal people. But lately, Zara has been asking questions. Papa, why do you leave every Tuesday night? Why do you come home before dawn smelling like smoke? Why do the men who work for you look at you like they're afraid? Adigun can't tell her the truth. How could he? How do you tell your daughter that her university tuition was paid for in blood, that her charity work is funded by murder, that the very air she breathes is poisoned by what he's become? Instead, he gives her a gift, a beautiful amulet made from pure gold, shaped like a feather. Wear this always, he tells her. Promise me you'll never take it off. Papa, you're scaring me. Promise me. She promises. She doesn't know that the amulet is the only thing standing between her and the spirits that surround her father like hungry wolves. The annual Lagos Festival of Lights, the biggest celebration in the city. Chief Adeyemi has been chosen as Grand Marshal, the highest honor Lagos can bestow. Hundreds of thousands of people line the streets. Cameras broadcast to millions. But Detective Kemi has been planning for this moment. Using her contacts in the power company, she orchestrates a citywide blackout right at the moment of Adigun's big speech. Chaos, panic. And in the confusion, something beautiful happens. The infrared cameras of news helicopters capture what normal cameras would miss. A convoy of black vehicles leaving the festival, heading toward the Badari forest. Kemi follows. But she's not the only one. Hidden in the back seat of one of those vehicles, driven by curiosity and desperation for answers, Zara Adeyemi is about to learn the truth about her father. The Badari forest at midnight. The same clearing where Adigun first made his deal with darkness. But tonight is different. Tonight, the spirits are hungry, and they want what they're owed. Kemi infiltrates the perimeter, her heart hammering as she watches through night vision binoculars. In the center of the clearing, Chief Adigun Adeyemi, the man the city worships, stands before an altar soaked in 17 years of blood. Around him, figures in masks chant in languages that predate written history, and chained to posts around the clearing, 7 men, construction workers, fathers, sons, the newest victims, waiting to be sacrificed for 7 more years of impossible wealth. Adigun raises a golden dagger above his head. The blade gleams like liquid fire. 7 hearts for 7 more years, he shouts to the wind. I offer what you demand. That's when everything goes wrong. Crashing through the underbrush, wild with terror and disbelief, comes Zara. She's followed her father's convoy, hidden in the darkness, and now she sees the truth that will destroy her world. Papa, no! The clearing erupts in chaos. Mamba lunges for Zara. The chained men struggle against their bonds. The masked figures scatter like shadows. And in that moment of confusion, Zara does something that changes everything. She runs to the chained men and starts cutting their bonds with a piece of broken glass, her hands bleeding, her tears mixing with the ancient blood on the altar. Mamba catches her. His machete rises. Adigun faces the choice that will define his soul. Save his daughter and face the wrath of the spirits, or complete the ritual and lose the only pure thing left in his life. For 17 years, he's chosen power over everything else. But as he looks at Zara, his daughter, his heart, his last connection to the man he used to be, something breaks inside him. He grabs Mamba from behind. They struggle. The machete flashes in the moonlight. When it's over, Mamba lies dead at the altar. His blood mingles with the ancient stains, and the spirits scream their rage into the night. Adigun has broken his pact, and the spirits want immediate payment. Flames begin to rise from the altar, spreading through the clearing like liquid death. The masked figures dissolve into smoke. And as police sirens wail in the distance, Adigun grabs his daughter and runs. But you can't run from what lives inside you. Dawn breaks over Lagos Lagoon, painting the water the color of blood and gold. On the bridge where the story began, where a 9-year-old boy once fished with his grandmother, Chief Adigun Adeyemi clings to his daughter as the city wakes up to discover who he really is. Detective Kemi arrives with a squadron of police cars, their lights painting the morning in shades of red and blue. She walks slowly toward the man who destroyed so many lives, her weapon drawn but pointed at the ground. "It's over, Chief," she says. "There's nowhere left to run." Adigun looks at her with eyes that have seen too much. In his hands, the leather grimoire, the source of his power and his damnation. "I feared being powerless again," he whispers. "I feared being that hungry boy they laughed at. But power without soul is just another kind of poverty." Zara sobs against his chest, this brilliant young woman who thought she knew her father. "Papa, how could you?" "I wanted to give you everything. Instead, I gave you nothing worth having." As the sun rises fully, painting the sky in impossible colors, Adigun makes his final choice. He hurls the grimoire into the lagoon, and for a moment, the water itself seems to scream. 17 voices, the voices of every man he sacrificed, rise from the depths and then fade into silence. The arrest is almost gentle. Adigun doesn't resist. He kisses his daughter's forehead and whispers something in her ear that makes her nod through her tears. Later, the media will call it the story of the century. Chief Adeyemi's empire crumbles overnight. His assets are seized. His buildings are sold. His name is stripped from every hospital, school, and orphanage he funded. But here's the ending that will restore your faith. Zara takes what's left of her father's fortune and creates a trust fund for the families of the 17 men he murdered. She dedicates her life to healing the wounds he created. And Detective Kemi, she places a single golden feather on the courthouse steps the day Adigun is sentenced. Not as a trophy, as a reminder. Because some stories end with justice, and sometimes, just sometimes, light can grow from even the darkest soil. Chief Adigun, Leo Adeyemi, sits in a prison cell now, no longer the golden lion of Lagos, but just a man who learned too late that the only wealth that matters can't be stolen, bought, or sacrificed for. Remember the words his grandmother spoke by the lagoon all those years ago. He who shakes hands with spirits must wash with fire. Some fires, once lit, burn forever. But sometimes, just sometimes, they burn away everything except the truth. And the truth is this: real power comes not from what you can take, but from what you choose to give. If this story gripped you, if it made you think, if it reminded you that every choice has a consequence, then share it. Because stories this dark were never meant to stay hidden. And maybe, just maybe, someone needs to hear this warning before it's too late for them too. Hit that subscribe button, because there are more stories like this. Stories of power, corruption, redemption, and justice. Stories that need to be told. The truth is waiting.